What is going on, all of you gamers, professional and casual out there in the world? I'm MegaAmpster. Thank you for checking out this video. If you are new here to the channel, welcome. Hope you're having a good holidays if you celebrate, or even if you don't. Hope you're having a nice, relaxing end of your 2023. Returning viewers, great to see you here as always. Thank you for all the support, especially recently on the channel. It is that time of the year, folks. End of 2023. Everybody's making their lists of their top 10 favorite games that came out this year. I already made lists for the top 10 older games I played for the first time this year, as well as my most anticipated for 2024, but save the best for last. These are my top 10 favorite games that I played in 2023. Just want to shout out, I hope all the developers who were laid off. This year was terrible for the industry. I hope they are all doing well. I hope they're able to land on their feet and are able to at least enjoy the rest of their year, because it's been such a bad year for the industry. It's important to remember that, but there have been a ton of great games, of course, that have come out this year, and that's what this video is all about, celebrating the games that released this year. Just to give a few disclaimers, I'm mostly a Nintendo gamer. I play some other stuff as well, but mostly Nintendo, so a lot of big games that came out this year I did not check out, like Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, Mortal Kombat 1, RE4 Remake, Spider-Man 2. Didn't get to check out any games like that this year, unfortunately, so don't expect to see them on this list. But let's go over some games that didn't quite make the cut because of disqualifications or just not quite making the top 10. First of all, Street Fighter 6. Really loved World Tour mode. I didn't finish it. I almost did on stream. But that's all I played of the game. You know, it was a great introduction, especially for someone who hasn't played Street Fighter before and wanted to get into it really badly. World Tour mode was awesome, and I'd recommend it to anybody who's vaguely interested in jumping into Street Fighter. I just didn't really get to check out Arcade mode or the Battle Hub or any of those extra modes that I feel like add a lot of content to the game. And I'd rather, when I include a game on lists like these, I want to experience the full game, the significant parts of the game. And I didn't before the end of the year, so I just didn't feel like it was fair to include it. But if I did, just based on World Tour mode alone, it'd probably be around middle of the list, maybe around the 6th spot, so, which is very fitting. Other disqualifications, I want to shout out Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. I only played about a third of the first game, but really quality game there, just not really for me. I wasn't really able to stick with it. I'm not a huge strategy game person, but I'm glad I checked it out. Really quality game if you're into those strategy ones. I'd consider it if you own a Switch. WayForward did a great job collabing with Nintendo there. Also, when it comes to remasters, especially ones that don't change up a ton of the core game, I really only consider them for these lists if it's like my first time playing them. So this disqualifies Metroid Prime Remastered from this list. Really quality remaster in terms of visuals and the accessibility options. Just, I've played it before, it was great to go back to, but I didn't feel like it was fair to include it on this list here. Also want to shout out, no DLC included, so no Sonic Frontiers Final Horizon. That wouldn't even made the top 10 if I included it, to be honest. Very mixed opinions about that, but not including DLC or expansions here. Sonic Dream Team, I also want to shout out. That's the Apple Arcade game that I've been playing very recently as of this recording. Haven't finished it. It's a mobile game, so didn't really want to include it here. Final shout out, actual honorable mention that could have made the list but didn't quite, was the Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, like that 2 to 3 hour visual novel made by, I believe it was the Sonic social media team who worked on that game. Just a quick little side project. Really fun writing, really fun character interaction, especially if you're a fan of the series, but very inconsequential. I don't know why it's the highest rated Sonic game on Metacritic. It shouldn't be, but it is there anyways. Just wanted to shout it out because that's a fun one. But with that, let's jump into the list here, the actual top 10, my top 10 favorite games that came out in 2023. So with that, number 10. This is an interesting game. This is a spin-off. I think it's a spin-off of, I don't want to say long-lasting series, but from a long-lasting producer of this series. This was released on Nintendo Switch in March of this year. Announced Game Awards last year. Kind of weird because we had just gotten the third game in the main series, and they announced this prequel game. Very different in terms of gameplay style, but visual style, I mean, this game definitely has it, but I'm very mixed on this game. Number 10 for me is Bayonetta Origins, Cereza, and the Lost Demon. Like I said, came out of nowhere. This is a prequel game too. I believe there's some whole timeline crap going on that I don't fully understand in Bayonetta. I believe it's the same one as in Bayonetta 3. I don't know. But regardless, definitely a visually unique game. I think this is one of the most visually interesting games that came out of Nintendo on the Switch. In motion, it looks really, really good. The storybook aesthetic, the visuals, the music's phenomenal. It's very immersive. Kind of gives me Ori vibes in that way. I'm not gonna lie, for me, it's the gameplay. It just gets a little repetitive. it's a little too simple for my liking. It's not nearly as in-depth as the action style of the core Bayonetta games. It's a lot more puzzle exploration focused, which is still good, but I think games like Ori and even Zelda, which I know this has been a little bit equated to, just do it way better. Um, if you're really into the lore of Bayonetta, I mean, sure, give this one a shot. It doesn't do a ton to do. It does explain kind of the whole it kind of explains Cheshire and the whole bond that Cheshire has with some of the characters in 3 a little better, which is cool. But otherwise, like, the combat just gets a little repetitive for me. Cheshire can get different elemental forms, which is cool, but it's like, I don't know, the gameplay's a little limiting. Please do not go after 100% completion. It is not worth it. It is honestly kind of a drag. Because of the visual style, it makes exploring the maps a little difficult in some areas and not intuitive. You can get upgrades and stuff, but it's just like, I don't know. The gameplay's very, very simple, not as in-depth as Bayonetta. If you're into Bayonetta for just the gameplay, you're probably not going to like this game. But if you're willing to experiment a little bit, check out a very visually interesting game, and, you know, maybe get a little more into the lore of the series, then this one could be for you. But just because that gameplay is not the most interesting to me, that's why it is down here at number 10 on the list. But with that, let's move into number 9 here. Now, this one, also a Nintendo game, but a little bit different here. This is one of Nintendo's online exclusive games. Definitely very competitive, and it's a series that hasn't come back in so long, since what, like the Game Boy Advance and the GameCube. Finally, I mean, it looks like one of the earlier games, but they gave it a fresh new gameplay style, and it makes so much sense in theory, and it's really fun. Number 9 for me is F-Zero 99. I want to shout this game out because besides Mario 35, I think this is my favorite, like, 99 battle royale game that Nintendo's done. They've had the Tetris one, there was Pac-Man. This one's definitely one of my favorites because just the idea of having 99 racers on the same map is absolutely bonkers. And it does have the visual aesthetic of the original Super Nintendo F-Zero, but obviously way more cars, way more chaos. You're incentivized to, like, ram into other cars and damage them. They add the boost meter. When you collect enough orbs, you can, like, essentially skip part of the map for just a little bit of time, and it helps you catch up, which is a really cool mechanic. And they're still updating this one, like maybe a month ago as of this recording. I don't remember exactly when. They had a big update that added a lot of new tracks and new cups and everything, which is really, really cool. So I hope they continue to update this even further. Like, I don't know if they could add tracks from, like, other F-Zero games besides the Super Nintendo one, but, like, that'd be awesome if they could. It's just very fun, very chaotic. This game works so well for 99. A style game, but I will say the one thing that keeps it from being higher up is just, I don't know, for me, the replay value. Like, I enjoy F-Zero, like, very short bursts. I haven't gone back to it in a couple months, to be honest, but in short bursts, it could be really fun, really chaotic. Just like the depth of the gameplay isn't there for me personally, but I mean, they did a great job of translating F-Zero into this style, and I think it should be commended. It is a new game. People who don't say it's a new game, I don't know what they're talking about, because it's brand new mechanics and everything. So with that, F-Zero 99 is my number 9, not 99, on this list. Number 8, we're going to jump right into this here. This one was interesting. I actually got a heavy discount on this game when it first came out earlier in 2023. And you could argue this is a sequel to a very critically, well, is it critically acclaimed? A fan favorite licensed game that I personally loved growing up. And they had a remaster a few years back, and then the same team, I believe it was the same team, they did a follow-up, brand new original game that really respects the source material. And that, at number 8, is SpongeBob SquarePants The Cosmic Shake. Now, to be honest, if I didn't get that discount, I probably would not have bought this game at launch. I think full price it's like 40, but I got it for like $9, like, by accident from Best Buy. This game, I'm going to say it outright. I think this game respects the original source material of the show better than Battle for Bikini Bottom does. This is essentially a sequel to Battle for Bikini Bottom with some new elements, but I think it respects the show a lot more than the original game does. And some of the levels are super creative and super original. I will say it does have that same kind of janky feel that, like, Battle for Bikini Bottom does. This feels like a game that came out in, like, the early to mid 2000s on, like, the PS2 or the Xbox, right? Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It depends on what you're wanting to get out of it, but it doesn't have a ton of, like, modern, it doesn't have that much of that modern feel or modern appeal to it. This really is a game for, like, kids, I'm sure, would get a kick out of it who really like SpongeBob, but also fans of the original, original game, the original early seasons of the show, which I loved growing up as a kid. It especially has a lot of references to the earlier seasons. There's a lot of costumes you can get, which is cool. The gameplay's pretty much the same. There are like golden spatula equivalents of collectibles you can get. So it feels very similar to Battle for Bikini Bottom. If you like Battle for Bikini Bottom, I would definitely give this game a shot. It has a lot of similar elements, new enemies, new items. It is a little janky, like I said, but there is definitely a lot to enjoy here if you were a fan of that, or the SpongeBob movie game, kind of similar gameplay there. It's so weird that this game came out in 2023, you know what I mean? It feels like a game that came out like 2 decades prior, but really fun if you're into that sort of gameplay. And like I said, really respects the source material there, even more so than Battle for Bikini Bottom, I would argue. So that is why it is number 8 on my list. Now, number 7, this is an interesting one because this is an older SEGA property that wasn't really looped in with those announcements we got very recently about all those old SEGA IPs coming back, but it is the first time it's come back since, I believe, the Wii. I'm pretty sure there was a game on the Wii for this series. And I said for so long, this, along with Jet Set Radio, which we got Bomb Rush, I guess, would have been perfect for the Switch because of the Joy-Con and how they can be used with motion to mimic certain items that you use in this rhythmic-based game. And this game at number 7 for me is Samba de Amigo Party Central. Oh, I think I picked the VR version. Oops. Anyways, this game on the Switch is just really, really fun. I've never played Samba de Amigo before, actually, before this game came out, and I was super excited to finally give it a shot on the Switch. I will say the motions don't always sync up. There's definitely, the Joy-Con aren't perfect, right? But it's definitely one of those games that it's just a fun party game, especially. I haven't played too much with friends. It was mostly on my own, to be honest. And I gotta say, man, this game is a workout. This game is an absolute workout. You work up a sweat. But I was so hyped when this game was announced in the February 2023 Direct. There's a lot of licensed tracks, some of the old songs. Of course, Vamos a Carnaval has to be here. It is. It's great to see. And it's, the music has to be good for a game like this. And it really is. It's a really great soundtrack there. There's a couple Sonic songs in there. I think it's Escape from the City and Fist Bump. And some other SEGA games. I believe a couple are in there. Not too many. I'm surprised there's not a ton of DLC for this game. At least I don't think there is. Which is kind of weird. I guess there were like some SEGA packs, but that was about it. And yeah, there is a cool single player mode called Streamigo, where like essentially you're an influencer, because of course everybody's an influencer in this day and age. But it's really cool where you're actually competing against other characters and slowly building up challenges and working your way through. So it's really fun in that regard. I think it's a really fun. Why are you playing Ed? I think it's a really fun, this quick little rhythm game with some cool single player elements actually that I did very much end up enjoying. And, definitely not the most in-depth gameplay. And like I said, the motions don't sync up all the time perfectly well. So I think that's why it is a little lower. But, I love the SEGA charm is here. The songs, for the most part, are really good and they work well with the rhythm. It's just such a workout, man. I played most of this in handheld, I'll be honest. I played most of it in handheld mode, but it was a really fun time. Nothing super in-depth, but definitely a fun time. So it is number 7 on my list here. Now, number 6 is probably going to surprise some of you, but listen. I took a step back. I had to be objective about where I was going to put this game. I think this game does some things really well, and it does some things not so well. I think it is a good step into the right direction for this long-running series. And the fact that, we even got a 2D form of one of my favorite series of all time is great. So the fact that it's here is great to see, and it makes me a little more hopeful for the future. But that at number 6 is Sonic Superstars. Now listen, I know you guys know I love Sonic. At least if you've watched my stuff on the channel here, you know I love Sonic. I was very excited for this game when it was announced. Honestly, I enjoy the 3D look here. I think the characters are extremely expressive in this art style. They don't necessarily take full advantage of that in the game, but it still looks really good. And like I said, the fact that we even got a new 2D game, all hope seemed lost after Mania, and we never got a follow-up to Mania, but that just proves this wasn't a celebration thing. It wasn't a point in time. Sega is interested in pursuing 2D Sonic in the future, just not in the Mania style, which, sure, is a bit of a bummer. But the game itself plays just like Mania. It feels really good. I will say, some of the level design is really not great. Some of it reminds me of like Dimp's era, like with some of the Sonic Advance games, which are still fun. Like I would put this on the same level as like Sonic Advance, probably Sonic Triple Trouble, which I mean, they brought back Fang. It has a lot of Triple Trouble vibes there, which the fact that they brought back Fang is great. Trip's a really great new character. I won't spoil anything for the end of the game. There's some really cool stuff about her that makes it interesting. Some of the bosses, I know that's been a big complaint. They're not the best, I'll admit. They're really not some of the best bosses. I don't mind them as much as other people. Some of the later bosses are really annoying, especially the Cyber Station boss. Oof. That one, not great. The Chaos Summer powers are pretty solid, actually. I kind of wish they were a little more integral to the whole experience. I feel like in some cases they feel a little superficial and tacked on. I kind of wish, I don't know how they would have done it, because like on one note, I'm like, oh, it'd be great if they were like actually required to progress through the level design. At the same time, it's like the Chaos Emeralds have never been required in a Sonic game, and I don't know if people would like that. Especially considering the special stages here they're not the worst, but they're also not the greatest. I think they're somewhere maybe in the middle. They're better than the Sonic 2 half pipes. That's all that matters, really. They also brought back the Sonic 1 bonus stages, which is cool. The soundtrack, I know that's a very mixed bag. I also agree. The T-Lopes tracks, man, Speed Jungle, oh, so good. I actually also really like the final level, Iron Fortress, I believe it was called. That's my favorite, like one of my favorite classic Sonic ending zones now, because the gameplay, the gimmick there with the level's really cool. And the music's great as well. And yeah, there is another campaign, won't spoil anything, that unlocks after you beat the main one. Some stuff going on there. The Supersonic boss, so stupid. Terrible Supersonic boss. But it's definitely, I don't know, it's a mixed bag. That's why it's number 6, because the things it does well they're so fun. So fun. But then the things it doesn't do as well, it's like, oh, right, well, like, to be honest, this whole jellyfish thing you're seeing here, not great. I don't know why that was the whole thing, like a Cyber Station. But it makes me hopeful. Like, this is Arzest, right? The Balan Wonderworld team, which honestly people were a little worried about going in. But I mean, Yuji Naka was the problem. He's not involved with this project. This is Oshima-san and his team coming back to the series after Sonic CD and doing a really good, commendable job. This makes me hopeful for the future of 2D Sonic. I think this is going in the right direction. Now, I didn't sell as well as like I hoped, I don't think, but I think it is a good step in the right direction. Could have done some things better, but could have done them a lot worse too. It's great to see 2D Sonic back in a solid, fun game, which is why it's at number 6. It is solid and fun. Just barely missed the top 5. But speaking of which, it is time. The top 5 games for me that came out this year. Number 5. This one was pretty recent. This was probably the most recent game on this list. For those of you who might know, I am not a big fan of turn-based RPGs. It's just the gameplay for me is very repetitive, and usually there's got to be some element that really makes me enjoy the game a lot more. And this game really has that. This is a remake of almost a 30-year-old, not quite, but almost a 30-year-old game, if you can believe it. Kind of came out of nowhere, and I know hardcore fans were super excited. And to be honest, this game looks super charming. I knew I had to give it a shot, and ended up being really fun. And that game for me at number 5 is Super Mario RPG, the remake that released on the Switch this year. I ended up streaming this game fully. I didn't do the post game, I will clarify. I just did the main story. This game's so charming. It is a very faithful remake done by the team, I believe, who worked on some of the Dragon Quest remakes on DS, I think it was, as well as like one of the 11S ports. But this game is super charming. They keep a lot of the original style, like the art style, of course, but it's obviously not pixelated. It's smooth. It looks beautiful. Honestly, it looks great. In motion, they added some new elements apparently. So like, there's the triple attack move you can do. I know some hardcore fans are a little bummed out that they kept like, or they added like the exclamation point for like getting the timings right. I think that's great, because what they do is like, they do it at first when you get a new move, or if you're starting to fall off on the timing, they introduce it in to show you. And then once you start getting good at it, they remove it. So it's like one of those things that's like, oh, you're missing out on the timing? All right, let's give you a little bit of a hint here. And it's still like a very short window when that exclamation point pops up. So you still have plenty of time to do it. But see, that's what I love. Like I said earlier, turn-based RPGs don't really do it for me unless there's something that carries it through. And the charm, in this game certainly carries it through. It reminds me of like that old school Rare charm almost, like with like Donkey Kong Country in a way. I guess just that Super Nintendo charm, if you will. But for me with the gameplay, it comes down to, even though I do think it's a bit repetitive, which is why it's not higher on the list, it's just the turn-based RPG gameplay style is not fully for me. But having the timed attacks, I think, is huge. And that really definitely helped me get through some of the slightly more repetitive gameplay here. the fact that you time your attack right and it does more damage. It can do splash damage in some cases. That really made it a lot more interesting. But even besides that, like I said, the charm is through the roof with this game. Visually looks amazing. The characters are really fun. I love Mallow and Gino, especially Mallow. I know Smash fans love Gino, but Mallow's such a fun character. He's great. So happy to see him here, as well as like Peach and Bowser in the party, which is really cool. Enemies are fun and varied. Some of the boss fights, the main boss fights, actually introduce really new gimmicks. Like, there's a couple in particular, including the final boss, which I think are really, really cool. They do some cool new gimmicks that also keep things a little more fresh. And the soundtrack, absolutely phenomenal. Yoko Shimomura and whoever else worked on this project did a phenomenal job of these remasters. This is one of my favorite soundtracks of the year, no doubt. Followed by, or superseded by, some other games that are going to be on this list. Other thing I will say that I'm not a huge fan of is it's a little too easy. And I've heard these new mechanics they've added to make it even easier. I do wish there was a little more challenge, but then again, it's a great turn-based RPG for new players, like kids who are into Mario who have never played a Mario RPG or a turn-based RPG at all, or just people who are checking it out for the first time. I think it is a good entry point into that, and it succeeds in that way. Don't even get me started on the dancing animations. Very charming game, very great game, and for someone like me who isn't huge into turn-based RPGs to really enjoy this game, I think that says a lot about the quality of this game. So that is why it is number 5 on my list. I gotta speed this up. Number 4. This is going back to the remaster point I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this video. This is a remaster that came out on the Switch earlier this year. One of the only games in this series that I had not played before. I played it for the first time here, and it plays phenomenally. They added a lot of new, really cool content too, which I very much enjoyed. And come on, it's adorable. You can't help but love it. Number 4 for me is Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe on the Nintendo Switch. Visually, they added the outlines to the characters. I know that's a little controversial. I love it. I think it's great. The new power-ups are solid. The new copy abilities are pretty solid too. The mech is okay. The sand's really good. There was another one, wasn't there? Let me know in the comments what I'm forgetting. But just the base game here, this came out obviously on the Wii originally. The base story here it's really solid. It's a little, I don't want to say stale in comparison to like other Kirby games now that I've played almost all the other ones in the series. It is not one of the most like in-depth stories, but it is fun. Magolor is one of the best like supporting characters that they've added in Kirby for sure. Magolor's up there as one of the best. It's just a really fun game. I won't spoil the ending in case, people are a little wary of spoilers for this one because this game is a little over 10 years old, but still. Came out this year. 60 frames, smooth 60 frames, looks great. Visually very striking. I will say, like, it's a little simple compared to some of the other ones. Like, I still think I prefer, like, Planet Robobot and probably Triple Deluxe over this one, but it's just, especially when you consider the time at which this came out, which this was, like, the first mainline Kirby game in a while when this came out on the Wii originally, but it still plays really well here. The mini games, they have a separate mode for that now called Merry Magoland, which they kind of incentivize you to unlock like new masks and challenges and things like that. And it's a bunch of returning mini games from the entire series. There's a couple new ones, but also ones from like, dude, Egg Catcher from Adventure. Absolutely peak. That's my favorite one. I love that. They had different difficulty modes, which some of the games have had before, but just like the fact that they wrapped them. I've never really been big into checking out the Kirby minigames, but they wrapped it around this fun, like almost like amusement park style. It incentivizes you to play them more, and it was really fun. I could see myself breaking this out with friends. I wish it was online, but like locally, just to play the minigames, not even the main story. They also added the Magolor's Nightmare? I forget what it's called. Magolor has a separate mode in this game, which you unlock after beating the main story, and it's almost like a Metroidvania. Like, you slowly get to upgrade some of his abilities. I won't spoil anything else. It's really fun. It's a really fun side mode that, like, honestly might be some of the best gameplay, including the main story in this game. So really great remaster with a lot of new content, and even the base game itself is fun, but all the extra stuff around it makes it super fun. The super abilities are fun. Not my favorite gimmick for Kirby, but it's still just a solid 2D platformer on the Switch, and I hope this means we get more 2D Kirby in the future, because as much as I enjoyed Forgotten Land, like, I want to see more 2D Kirby. So that is number 4 on the list here. All right. Top 3, folks. This is where it got tricky. This game. People are going to be mad at me for this game. People are going to be mad at my placement for this game. I can think of a couple people in particular who watch this channel. But like the original game, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I vastly prefer this game. This game sucked me in. And I feel like I might have spent too much time on this game, but I mean that just goes to show the quality of the game for how much time I ended up spending into it, which was about 200 hours. And I did a lot of side stuff in this game, especially compared to the original. It hooked me in, and like there's not much else to say besides that. Number 3 here, I mean, you probably know what it is at this point. Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I know some of you are going to be mad and you'll be like, oh, how is it not number 1? Like, listen, first of all, I want to be different. Second of all, I've voiced my complaints about this style of Zelda on the channel in the past. I do not think this open world, I mean, a lot of open world games in general, they just don't respect your time. And as someone who doesn't have as much time nowadays, it's like, I kind of cringe at that 200 hours. I mean, like I said, it speaks to the quality of the game. This game is addicting. Like, just going through different stuff. This game is literally, to me, Breath of the Wild, but way more. Like, I'm never going to revisit Breath of the Wild at all. Like, I don't see myself ever doing it unless I did, like, a Zelda marathon, which, in my current lifestyle, is not feasible. This game is just so good. So masterfully crafted. I mean, Ultra Hand speaks for itself. That actually wasn't my favorite ability. My favorite ability was actually Recall. Because Recall, it's funny, the people I've talked to haven't used it as much as I have. I've used it for so much stuff. I mean, any projectile-based enemy is literally screwed because of Recall. And also, you know, you can use it to get up to the floating islands in the sky. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do, just physics-based puzzles. You know, of course, the shrines are as addicting as ever. The temples they've added are really great. I don't want to spoil too much, but like, it's pretty much like 2.5 times the size of the original Breath of the Wild map. The story here, personally, I find way more engaging. There were genuinely some moments as someone who's played a lot of other Zelda games where it's all just fan service, but I kind of flipped out a little bit at certain moments. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But the new abilities are great. Ascend is really cool too. Fuse is probably my least favorite, but you can do some really cool stuff, especially with arrows with that. And just, I don't know, man, this game just hooked me so much more. I will say, these games, it's an issue with Breath of the Wild as well. They almost feel like a bit of a to-do list to me, just like a task list of like, oh, check this off, and then do the main story, you know? And I think that's why it's not quite in the top 2, because I look back and I'm like, I really like this game. I don't see myself ever replaying it. It was an in-the-moment thing that, I mean, when I was in the moment, it was amazing. Especially because it's one of those games that's designed to be broken. Like, you can, sure, there might be like 1 or 2 ways that the developers intend for you to do a certain challenge, but like, you can do it in so many different ways and completely break the game, and that's what's awesome about it. So, really super creative game, once-in-a-lifetime game, honestly. I think this does so much more than Breath of the Wild, and I personally prefer it for that reason. Interesting we didn't get DLC, but it seems like the team wants to move on from it. But listen, there's not really much more I can say about Tears of the Kingdom here without spoiling anything. Final moments of the game were, the main story were great too. Amazing game. You all know how good this is. Great game. I'm still hoping we get more traditional Zelda games in the future, but hey, for now, it's at number 3. It's really up there. I mean, the fact that it's even up there for how big of a game it is, I'm not a huge long game person, but like, this was my Xenoblade Chronicles of this year, and it was just really, really a fun time. So that is number 3 on the list. Now, numbers 2 and 1 really went back and forth, and some of you are going to be mad for putting these, at least this one probably, above Tears of the Kingdom, but I do not care. This is my list, so go home. No one cares. No, your opinion's valid, don't worry, but my opinion's also valid, so respect it. Number 2, this was a game that was on my most anticipated list for a couple years in a row, just because it kept getting delayed. Completely different game than Tears of the Kingdom. Much shorter game, but a lot more concise, and in that way, I kind of prefer it that way. A spiritual successor to some of my favorite games of all time, and I think honestly, I think this passes the originals. I think it does. Number 2 for me is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Now listen, before you get your pitchforks out, man, I love the style of Jet Set Radio. I love the vibes of Jet Set Radio. This game, and no one wants to admit it, maybe no one agrees with me, this game, to me, is far superior to Jet Set Radio. The one thing I will say, well, a couple things that Jet Set Radio has over Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. This game doesn't have a DJ Professor K-like character, and he added so much to the Jet Set Radio games. I do miss him or some character like him in this game. I think that would have been cool. And it's just, I think this game is overall lacking a little more style that Jet Set Radio has that this game does not. But in all other ways, I think this game is honestly superior. The soundtrack is a lot more varied, but I mean, Hideki Naganuma's song, he did a lot of the tracks in the older, not all of them, but a lot of the tracks in the Jet Set Radio games. But he's here to do a few. Get Enough might be my song of the year. I absolutely adore that song. But like in terms of gameplay, I think this game is far and away superior. The graffiti, I'm definitely torn on. It's a little more involved now because you can, depending on what directions you input, you can do new designs, which is really cool. I don't know how it worked in Jet Set Radio. I think it was just kind of randomly fixed, honestly. But like the fact that you can, there's boosting, which I think Future definitely had, but like you can lean into rails to upgrade your combo boost, which gets you more points. You can switch between bikes. So you got like that Dave Mirra or skateboards like Tony Hawk, and of course you've got your rollerblades, and you can like toggle them on or off. The story is much more in depth than I originally was anticipating, which is kind of wild to me. I'm a big proponent of like motion in games and how good it feels to play, and like this game feels so good. I literally picked it up again like a few nights ago as of this recording because I was just like not in the best mindset. I'm like, I need a comfort game. And like I played it for just half an hour and just, I've beaten the game already, but just unlocked some extra characters and stuff. There's plenty of extra unlockables to do in this game too. And just like, man, this is gonna be a comfort game I return to just every so often and just boot it up on my Steam Deck and play around with it because it's so fun. The story, like I said earlier, I hinted at earlier, takes some twists that I was not expecting originally. But it's really, really cool to see them here. And I don't know, it feels so good to play. It feels so good to play. I would definitely give this a shot. I think Team Reptile, I was anticipating this game for a few years, and I think Team Reptile, personally, I think they definitely delivered. And I honestly hope that the SEGA Jet Set Radio game that they're working on now, the new one, I hope it takes some cues from this game, because I really think this game does a lot of cool things. The phone as well, with the music player and the map and everything, that's huge. That makes finding all the graffiti spots in particular a hell of a lot easier. Just really fun game to play that I think for the most part captures that original style in terms of visuals, of course, and the music, but in terms of gameplay, I think it's far and away superior to the Jet Set Radio games, but I know that's a little controversial. But it's number 2 on this list. It's just, this game speaks to me. It's one of my favorite games of all time now. Very short, concise experience that if you're into this sort of stylish game, definitely would recommend. But, this is going to be a long video. All right, well, we're at number 1 regardless. It's been a long time coming. This game. Now, I just mentioned Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is one of my favorite games of all time. This game has also become one of my favorite games of all time. In fact, it has become my favorite action game of all time. Complete surprise, absolute shadow drop out of a company that I would not have expected. And man, this game vibes with me so damn much. I feel so personally connected to this game that I'm going to start gushing about it for a few minutes here, but oh, hold on. I think somebody's at my door. I'm going to go answer that real quick. Let's rock. Number 1. Yeah, you can guess it at this point. If you know the costume, my number 1 pick for 2023 is Hi-Fi Rush, man. This game, whoo boy, this game connects with me on a personal level that I don't know if any of you fully understand. Like, when I played this game, I was a 25-year-old, I'm 26 now, 25-year-old male who, I love music. I love music. This game is music fused with action. And like, on the surface, like a rhythm action game, like, you might be like, how is that gonna work? How are they Phenomenal job. If anything, as a musically inclined person, like having an action game centered around rhythm it's so intuitive for me. I have learned how to parry from this game. This game has taught me how to parry. It's kind of similar to Devil May Cry 5 where you have the timing based attacks, but obviously now, sorry, not 5, I meant 3, I apologize. Now, you have it like literally straight up a rhythmic based game where it goes along to the rhythm of the music and the world moves along to the music as well. It is such an alive and lived in world. Of course, visually, super, super stunning. Just like the comic book aesthetic and motion looks great. I love the characters of this game. Chai, Peppermint, Macaron, Corsica, like the whole squad. The bosses are really fun. They're not all winners, but like most of them are phenomenal. going back to the music, man. The music in this game, oh my goodness. Favorite soundtrack of the year, hands down. It's up there with Mario RPG and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, but man, like I think this is my favorite. The licensed tracks as well as the unlicensed stuff, the original stuff. Even if you're not a streamer, turn on streamer mode, just give the soundtrack a listen. It's also on streaming services. Shout out to the Glass Pyramids, who I think were created for this game, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that. The main thing I will say, I mean, the one thing I could think of to complain about this game is like, I mean, the platforming can be kind of basic, but like, it's all about the combat, the rhythmic based movement. Even when I wasn't forced to fight to the rhythm, I found myself just dashing and grappling along to the rhythm. It just like, you feel like you're in such, especially, I mean, if you're not musically inclined or you're not like rhythmically inclined, I could see this maybe being tricky. I can't speak from that point of view because like I've played music for many years of my life, and as a result, I just connect with the mechanics in this game so well. But if you're not, I don't know how well this game does in teaching you that, but oh my goodness, man. This game, I mean, I got the costume. You guys can already tell I'm a really big fan of this game. This is easily my favorite action game. Story's nothing crazy in depth, but it is, for this kind of game, it's more in depth than you would expect. The characters are so lovable, visually amazing, and gameplay in terms of action. Super charming game, pokes fun at itself. There is a lot of content too. There's a whole post game you can do. With another ending. There's like a separate like almost roguelike mode you can do, which to be honest I haven't fully experimented with, but I've heard it's pretty good, and they kept updating it a little bit. Best part about this, they shadow dropped it from Microsoft of all people in January of this year, and it's stuck in my head ever since. It's on Game Pass. It's also only $30 full price on both Xbox and Steam, so you can check them out there. It's just, if you're at all curious, I would recommend giving this game a shot. Like, this game absolutely surprised me out of nowhere. I paid the full $30 for it. It might even be on sale now. I hope that Tango Gameworks, especially coming from them, considering, oh, I forgot about Cinnamon, and of course 808. Coming from them, they had worked on the Evil Within games. The director of Evil Within 2 directed this game. Like, out of nowhere, they took a chance. Bethesda and Microsoft said, sure, let's try it out. Holy crap, they nailed it. Holy crap, I love this game. This game is, I feel such a personal connection with this game. Like, sometimes I literally, for so many years of my life, not to get too personal, I have felt like the world around me, just as a musically inclined person, kind of just like moves to that rhythm. And like, I vibe with this game and these characters so much as a result. Bro, I hope we get a sequel. I don't know how well the game did. I think it did, what, like 3 million players on Game Pass or something, which, I mean, for a game of this size that they took a chance on, like, I say that's a success. I hope, give them more budget, give them more resources, just like, let them, if they want to. Obviously, if, you know, Tango wants to do something else original, go for it. But like, this game, holy crap. This game is one of my favorite games now of all time. If you're at all curious, if you're an action game fan, if you're a rhythm game fan and you're at all curious, I would give it a shot. It is so fun. Such a charming game. Came out of nowhere. Like you're seeing here, great licensed tracks as well as the unlicensed tracks. It's just absolutely phenomenal game. So it is my #1 game of the year. And it was close, but ultimately I had to think about it, and I was like, you know what? No, this is it. I don't want to call this a perfect game, because it's definitely not a perfect game, but for me, it is such a complete package, and this is one of the games that vibes with me the most. It is up there with like Sonic Mania and Metroid Dread. It is up there easily. So this is my #1 game of 2023. Just to do a quick recap, number 10 was Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. Number 9 was F-099. Number 8 was SpongeBob the Cosmic Shake. Number 7, Samba de Amigo Party Central. Number 6, Sonic Superstars. Number 5, Super Mario RPG Remake. Number 4, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Number 3, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Number 2, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. And of course, number 1, Hi-Fi Rush. What a rush of a game, man. I hope we get more. So great. I'm so looking forward. This is like my favorite Xbox series now. If they continue to make more games, I am there day one. But that is going to do it for my list of top 10 games that came out in 2023. Let me know in the comments below what you think of all of these games mentioned here, including the honorable mentions I brought up earlier. Let me know what your favorite picks for favorite games of 2023 were. I'd be curious to know what your favorite games are. And as always, thank you for the support. Happy holidays if you celebrate. If you don't, just hope you get a nice, relaxing end of your year. And keep on gaming. 2024 is looking bright. And It's been a great year for games for sure. So, and just like I said, remember that like, despite the great games coming out this year, a lot of jobs have been lost in this industry. So keep that in mind. That doesn't mean we shouldn't celebrate the games that came out this year. It's important to remember that it's a very kind of volatile industry to be in. So keep that in mind. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your year, and I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. And until then, keep rocking.